Welcome to the Know, I'm Ashley.
I'm Mica.
Following the latest round of Guardians revolting against Destiny 2, it looks like developer Bungie has finally decided to face the music. They canceled their planned livestream of the upcoming Curse of Osiris DLC content in an effort to talk frankly to the community about players' concerns about the state of the game.
And late Wednesday afternoon, Bungie dropped a list of tweaks to the game in response to a lot of fan outcry. They wrote in a blog post, "Our team has been reading feedback and working on updates to improve the game. We've also been reading some tough criticism about our lack of communication, and we agree we need to be more open."
Man, has Bungie seen the light?
Yeah.
Will the end game of Destiny 2 be gloriously reborn? Before I get too excited, we've sort of been in this spot before with the Destiny franchise. Even still, there are definitely things to take note of in Bungie's post. Like the fact that they barely talk about the hidden experience issue that caused so much controversy to begin with.
Well, in the post titled The State of Destiny 2, it goes into a lot of detail about what improvements they'll be making in the game the next 2 months and beyond. They also sort of address the complaints from fans that they haven't been listening to feedback and writing, "We know it's frustrating when there isn't enough of a dialogue with the development team. You have our commitment that we're going to do a better job going forward."
But first, tiny bit of background how we got to this point. If you're unaware of some of the recent turmoil in the Destiny community, all that started in the recent weeks with players noticing there seemed to be a discrepancy between the experience players were earning and what was being calculated by the game.
As it turned out, players were totally right to be suspicious because the game was throttling progress, stripping as much as 96% of experience away from the player. At the time of discovery, the accusations were that this might have happened as an effort to push people in the direction of spending more money on microtransactions, as the reward for leveling up can also just be bought with real money.
Bungie put up a post admitting the system wasn't great, and then they seemingly fixed it. Great news. However, users soon discovered that in their fix, the developers also secretly doubled the amount of experience it took to level up, or greatly increased it at the very least, which basically made things the way they were before, except for everyone and not just people who were grinding. Naturally, people weren't very happy about that, or then were doubly unhappy that Bungie tried to seemingly pull a fast one on them.
And when you add all of that to the endgame frustrations that many players have already been feeling, plus the unrest over the recent Battlefront 2 loot box situation, the whole thing kind of blew up.
Bungie stayed silent while the community raged through the weekend and early part of this week until they announced they'd be canceling their planned live stream of Curse of Osiris content and instead directly addressing community concerns. Which is probably for the best, seeing as how the last one resulted in some scathing community-based memes after the developers failed to comment on ongoing community concerns.
Community manager Deej wrote, "Tomorrow we had planned to conduct the final stream prior to the launch of Curse of Osiris to show off some of the weapons and armor the expansion includes. Instead, we are investing all our efforts into delivering some higher priority information about Destiny 2.
Alright, so that gets us back up to speed. Now, back to today's community update and whether or not it actually spoke directly to the problems the players have had.
We'll give you a quick summary of the biggest things they listed. Maybe the biggest is a new weapon tier called Masterworks, which will feature stat trackers, random rerollable stat bonuses, unique item tooltips, and item detail screens, so I'm pretty excited about this.
Yes, the rerollable stat bonuses are actually a pretty big deal too, because that's something that players have been missing since Destiny 1. In Destiny 2, all rolls were the same for the highest tier of weapons, whereas in Destiny 1, they would get random values that left players constantly grinding for god rolls. It sounds like the new Masterworks system will bring a lot of that stuff back into play at the highest level of the game's weapons.
In addition, there are improved vendor rewards, and Bungie is also adding ways for people to purchase items directly with their many legendary shards and tokens. Oh, and they're also rolling out better incentives for players who complete challenging prestige activities.
So there's a whole lot more there. There's more ways to choose your emotes, private crucible matches, that kind of thing. But the main gist is that they are giving players more incentives and more rewards for in-game content, which is something people have been asking for. Whether or not those will be sufficient for players remains to be seen. But these are all things the community has been clamoring for.
And while the changes are positive steps, one of the more important things they did was to outline when players can expect them.
That is also important.
Super important. Either next week when Curse of Osiris releases or in the beginning of the new year. I mean, they literally put dates next to every single release, so there's no question.
Which is great.
Yeah.
But then you get to, how'd they handle that whole hidden experience issue? Well, it turns out they kind of glossed over that bit completely.
Yeah, in the post Bungie wrote, "Last weekend we disabled a scaling mechanism that adjusted XP gains up and down without reflecting those adjustments in the UI. Our intention was to keep slower paced activities as rewarding as high intensity grinding without confusing variations in displayed XP values. But the silent nature of the mechanic betrayed the expectation of transparency that you have for Destiny 2.
And Yep, that was about it. They said they'll give more details about how they'll do that and how they're going to fix it in the future, but it is a little bit weird that we didn't get anything at all about some of the reasons the hidden experience was an issue in the first place. It remains speculation for now. A lot of people are saying, well, it's pretty common in MMOs to keep you from doing the same thing over and over and over and over.
Right.
But they didn't really address it, nor did they answer some of the most pressing questions like, was this all about loot boxes?
But they did sign off by saying that they will continue this dialogue as openly and frequently as possible. This will be an ongoing process, but one that we are committed to. Some community members are tired of the cycle of getting frustrated with Destiny. Bungie finally says something, people are temporarily happy, then things change all over again. But for those gamers, the goodwill has just about run its course.
Still though, the fact that the first Destiny definitely improved over time with regular content updates and a proper endgame, if that's the track for Destiny 2 has, there could be some light at the end of this tunnel. It's just, you'd think Bungie would have learned this lesson already, but better late than never.
At the very least, it's a good sign that Bungie seemed to hear what was going on in the community and had some very big discussions about it within the company. Deej said today on Twitter that the party line was bigger than usual on today's post, which was signed off on by the game's development leaders.
So we'll see if this makes a huge difference heading into the release of Curse of Osiris's expansion pack. That content is dropping on December 5th, which is just around the corner, so we'll get to see some of the first changes they're putting in.
Honestly, as a huge Bungie fan and Destiny 2 fan myself, I am pleasantly surprised and pleased with this feedback. Like, they listened and they seem sincere. Hopefully we won't get our hands bitten, but for now, ornaments on weapons. That's exciting to me. But what do you guys think
all it takes.
about Bungie's announcement addressing the issues with Destiny 2? Are you satisfied? Are you a longtime Guardian? Are you a new Guardian? Guardians, do you want to see more? Let us know in the comments.
And for all your Destiny 2 news, make sure you like this video. If you're new here, subscribe to the know.
Guardians! Situation, yeah, the whole thing kind of blew up.
Bungie stayed silent while the community just raged throughout the weekend and the early part of this week until I just burped. And they think it's funny.
Wait, that might have happened. Oh. It's not that funny.